Okay, picture this. Ancient Greece. You've got two cities that are absolute powerhouses. They're neighbors, really, only about 150 miles apart. They even worship the same gods. But in every way that mattered, they were from different planets. This is the story of Athens versus Sparta, a rivalry that didn't just define an era, it literally changed the world.
And that's really the big question, isn't it? How does that happen? How did two neighbors become such bitter enemies, such polar opposites? One gives us democracy and philosophy. The other becomes this legendary military machine. What sent them down such radically different paths? Well, let's dig in and find out. So first, let's talk about Athens. When most of us think of ancient Greece, this is what we're picturing. The stunning temples on the Acropolis, right? This was the buzzing center of the universe for art, for trade, and for mind-blowing new ideas like democracy. These guys were laying the groundwork for us.
And then you had Sparta. Sparta was basically the anti-Athens. It was this grim, serious society that had no time for luxuries like art or philosophy. For a Spartan, life had one and only one purpose: become the perfect warrior and serve the state. No questions asked. To really get this rivalry, we have to start with Sparta. We got to understand what made them tick. And the secret ingredient, the thing that shaped their entire world, it wasn't strength. It wasn't bravery. It was fear. Their whole society was built on a deep, deep foundation of fear. That's right, fear. Almost everything about them, the way they raised their kids, their government, their military, it was all a reaction to one single massive threat that was living right next door. So here's what happened. Way back in the 8th century BC, Sparta conquered their neighbors, the Messenians. But they didn't just beat them in a battle. No, they enslaved the entire population. These people, called helots, were forced to work the land for their Spartan masters. And here's the kicker. The helots outnumbered the free Spartans by a huge margin. Some say as much as 7-1. Suddenly, the Spartans were living in constant nagging fear of a massive slave revolt. And that fear changed everything. From that moment on, the entire Spartan society reorganized itself around one obsessive goal: control the helots and prevent an uprising at all costs. For a Spartan citizen, your job was simple: defend the state. That was it. Everything else was a distraction.
Their whole government was engineered for stability and control. It was genius, in a terrifying way. You had two kings, not one, specifically, so neither could get too powerful. You had 5 officials called ephors who could actually overrule the kings. Then there was a council of elders to offer advice. And finally, an assembly for all citizens to vote. It was a rigid, locked-down system designed for one thing: to prevent change and suppress any threat. And if you want to know just how dark this fear got, look at the Crypteia. This was basically a secret police force. The most promising young Spartan soldiers would be sent out into the countryside, sometimes with nothing but a knife, with permission to hunt and kill any helot they came across. Think about that. It was state-sanctioned murder, designed to keep the helot population terrified and powerless. Okay, so while Sparta is turning itself into a military prison camp to control its slaves, Athens is dealing with a totally different crisis. Their problem wasn't an external threat. Their society was about to implode from the inside because of massive, crushing inequality. Before a guy named Solon came along around 594 BC, Athens was a powder keg. If you were a poor farmer and had one bad harvest, you could end up in so much debt that you and your entire family could be sold into slavery. The rich were getting richer, the poor were losing everything. So Solon steps in and does something unbelievable. He cancels all debts, wipes the slate clean, and he makes debt slavery illegal forever. It was a radical move. But he didn't stop there, and this is where it gets really brilliant. He completely reshaped Athenian society. Instead of power being based on who your dad was, he made it about wealth. He created 4 classes based on how much your land produced. Now look at this. Only the richest guys could hold the top jobs, sure. But even the poorest laborers got a say in the assembly. For the very first time, your place in society wasn't just something you were born into. It was a game changer. Now, Solon's reforms didn't create a perfect democracy overnight. It was a long, messy process. But what he did was set Athens on a completely new path. By giving more people a stake in the system, he laid the foundation for that incredible explosion of art, science, and philosophy we now call the Golden Age of Athens. So there you have it. 2 cities, each shaped by its own crisis. Sparta chose iron-fisted control to crush its internal fear.
Athens chose bold, risky reform to heal its internal divisions. And these two completely opposite ways of looking at the world, well, they put these two powers on an unavoidable collision course.
And just look at how different they were top to bottom. In Sparta, your goal was to serve the state. In Athens, your goal was to participate in the state. Sparta was totally isolationist. Get this. They used clumsy iron coins that were basically worthless outside their borders just to discourage trade. Meanwhile, Athens was a global trading hub, shipping out its famous olive oil and welcoming talented people from all over.
And you know how this story ends. This fundamental clash of values, this jealousy and fear, it all boiled over into the Peloponnesian War. For nearly 30 years, the Greek world tore itself apart. And in the end, nobody really won. The war bled both Athens and Sparta dry, leaving them exhausted and broken, just shadows of what they once were. So it leaves us with this final question. You have two powerful visions for how to run a society. On one hand, you have Sparta's idea, stability through absolute control. On the other, you have Athens, innovation through freedom, even if it's chaotic. Which of those two ideas do you think has the stronger echo in our world today? It's something worth thinking about.